Hi. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It is Wednesday, which means time for a wrap-up. I trade off between things and wrap-ups, but this is going to be a group book review. My name is Margaret Pennard. I am a historical fiction and speculative fiction author, and you're on Booktube. So welcome and pull up a seat. I just finished my tea, so hopefully I can make it through this video live stream without going parched. So I'm going to be talking about the books that I've read since my last wrap up of Indigenous reads for November. I'm not quite at the end of my year. You'll see they're sort of transitional reads. I've got 6 books for you today, and I've got lots of notes on them, so I'm going to try to truck through them pretty quickly because in 1 hour, I'm actually going to hop over to a Mighty Blazes channel. Authors Love Bookstores, the Wednesday show, is doing like their farewell show after 3.5 years, so that's going to be pretty special, and I want to go over there and say hi to the Blazers and everything. So if you have watched Authors Love Bookstores or are just curious what I'm talking about, you can hop on over with me. I will pop that in the chat. But for now, we're going to do the Wednesday wrap-up rigmarole. Oh, I got through that without messing it up. So, 6 books. The announcements I'm going to get out of the way before we cover our 6 books are things that are coming up. So I just recently, and just again today, hit 1,000 subscribers, and I'm asking for any questions you have about Booktube or AuthorTube or whatever about my channel so that I can answer those on Christmas Eve. So I had slated that to be a Storygraph statistics live stream, and I'm just going to add it in, smush it in with all the 1K Q&A stuff. I've got a post up on the community tab. It's the latest one, but one. So feel free to drop any questions there, and I'll be gathering them up from all the different platforms to answer on Christmas Eve. So it's like an early gift to me. So that is coming up. Yeah, and then I was just gonna say hello to everybody who stopped by before I jump in, which is Anita A.F. Stewart, Leslie, Books, Skirts, and Purrs. She just had a video go up. Awesome. R.C. Scott, and we're ready to go. So the first book I have is the latest out, and I mean publication date by latest. So I've got this here. So I just finished this last night. I read it on, you guessed it, Libro.fm as an audiobook, and it was fairly short. It's a nonfiction that does not fall into the trap of droning on and on, right? He gets his thesis out, he has several interesting points and supports them and reads it himself. So this is, Humanize, A Maker's Guide to Designing Our Cities by Thomas Heatherwick. And yes, that sounds like a fantasy author's name, but it's not. He is a designer of buildings, objects, sculptures, art, tools, all sorts of things. And so this, I think, came out yesterday based on some of the booksellers' posts that I've seen when they do a New Book Tuesday. So thank you to Libro.fm. What are my thoughts? So I'm very tempted to change my Sunday video and make it a standalone book review of this book because it's very thought-provoking. Whenever you talk about urban planning, city design, how buildings look, you get a lot of opinions, right? But here are the interesting thoughts that I got from Humanize by Thomas Heatherwick. I gave it 4 stars. And I do want to get into beauty in buildings, but main points. Good points about the big climate thing in buildings. He points out that more than aviation, buildings in the world create a lot of carbon. So it's bad for the climate. They're expensive to build, they're expensive to demolish, and they're expensive to rebuild because they're crap. So they just keep having this 40-year lifespan. His thesis is basically like around 1920, people started changing the way they thought of building buildings. It wasn't for the ages. It wasn't for the function. It was with modernism, with post-World War I disillusionment. People wanted something totally different. They wanted truth. They wanted no sort of hidden things, because people were really angry and they were working it out in the way that they designed buildings, is what it sounds like. And unfortunately, that has stayed with the whole industry for 100 years. And he's basically advocating a change from the cookie cutter, cheap, efficient building design that we get today. And I am all for that. I am very definitely supporting the thought that older buildings had a lot more going on and a lot more to offer, and we should diversify the building stock that we're putting up now with a lot of different priorities in mind. So that was the first good point, is that climate dictates that we need to change what we're doing. The second one is that he calls architecture, in the UK at least, and probably around the world, a cult. He goes very carefully through like explaining what it takes to be called an architect, how strict it is, how you're sort of brainwashed, how your opinion changes. And so basically you end up as an architect thinking that something is beautiful because of all the ways you've been shaped and brainwashed, while outside everyone else has a different opinion about the buildings that you're building. And I thought it was pretty convincing. I don't know many architects. It's not my world. And so I thought that was interesting, and that would help explain why so many crappy looking buildings go up. A third good point. He had a really interesting metaphor. Buildings today look like profit. They look like money because they're all after efficiency. And just like Jamie Oliver revolutionized the British school lunch program, he said, we don't want our kids to taste food that tastes like efficiency, something like that. And so basically the metaphor, the parallel in building, is we don't want buildings to look like money. I thought, yeah, I wouldn't have connected to it if he didn't like put it in context, but yeah, it looks like the cheapest thing you could possibly build, the most efficiency in private space owned that you can get through in the regulations. And it's just like, yeah, there's a lot of things that have shaped this that are not values that I hold dear. So that was really enlightening. And then my fourth point was the question that I want to address on a different video about people's opinions. So when I said the divergence of judgments about beauty between architects and the regular public, I sort of had questions about the regular public considering things beautiful based not just on aesthetics, but also aspirational status. So like if you look at an old building that's like Georgian Terrace, and then you look at another building that's like new, stripped bare, white, shiny, flat glass, it's kind of like, well, maybe one is soulless looking and the other is very ordered and still kind of soulless looking, but because you've been taught to associate it with like high class, high status, rich people, all those experiences in the media, like that will feel more beautiful and welcoming. So I was wondering, like when he talks about these surveys, how does he account for that? So if you got thoughts, write them down in the comments. He uses the word boring a lot to describe like new buildings. And I think he could have just used soulless. So Thomas, if you're out there, did you consider that word for your thesis? It might not have worked as well because it's more, loaded with association to have a soul, but that's what I kept thinking when I was listening to it. So all in all, very good, and just out now. So definitely recommend picking it up and checking it out at the library or wherever you find your audiobooks. Hi, Pip. We're on to the next book, which is one I have in real life. So I can take this down. So this one I got at a friend's local bookstore. It says, In Praise of Home Cooking, Reasons and Recipes by Liana Krisoff. And yes, I am one of those people who buy cookbooks and read them without making a single recipe. This is the third one this year. So 3 in a year is high. I haven't gotten any cookbooks for a while. And then this year, for some reason, the ones that are speaking to me with values like Korean vegan or, the solo one, they're saying something interesting and new to me. So it's not so much about recipes that I want to make and put in my rotation. It's more about like thinking about cooking, planning, and adapting my values in the world to what I'm eating and buying like every week. So I sort of flipped through this and was like, oh, this is really cool. I like the photography. I like the things that she's cooking. There's bread, there's vegetables. There's also like preserving, and it just seemed like well balanced type of things, but also the food writing. So she's Liana Kristoff. Hey dude. Hey dude. Hi. He's back. He's back to hijack the stream. What was I saying? The food writing. So she's like not a ghostwriter for cookbooks, but like has been a food tester and like done lots of things in the food writing / cookbook industry. So she's got maybe one food writing article to every 3 recipes and sort of like weaves them in and out, which is a ratio I hadn't come across before. And I really enjoyed her essays. She writes really well. But here's the thing. This is a 3.5 stars just for me, because while I really enjoyed the writing, a lot of her writing is dealing with having a daughter and having that daughter come up in the kitchen and the relationship building and the passing on of knowledge. And that's just really not my thing. So I'm going to be passing this on to a friend who that would be pretty meaningful for. So I'm actually excited that I got this and now can give it to someone as a gift that like I know it'll be nice for them too. Yes. So that's the second book. We've got Holiday Romance #1. So if you know, I started a holiday romance audiobook bingo card. And this book, I think, is the second one. It's the first one today, anyway. And it helped me cross off several more boxes on my bingo card. This is The Xmas Holidays from Zoe Allison. It's a really cute cover. Obviously, it's going to have some sort of enemies to lovers trope with that cover. And I got it from the library, so you can see the little barcode. This was very enjoyable. It was very funny. I think holiday romances kind of need to be funny, And I'd say 3.75 stars for me. It's got the miscommunication trope, which is usually a game over for me because it's so frustrating to have something that affects 2 people's whole lives be this really simple step that was just missed opportunities multiple times and you just get frustrated with the characters. So normally that's a like game over for me, but this was it's got sort of a twist. It's not just the miscommunication. So I'll let you know it's also got like poor versus rich class divide trope or themes going on. It also touches on narcissism in relationships and the trauma that ensues, and it does that pretty sensitively, I think. So while the person who is the narcissist is pretty flat, like there's one-off where you might be led to think, oh, that's why they're like that. It's really not developed. So the villain gets to be a pretty cartoon villain. That's fine. The romance is about the 2 people in love, not whoever else. It also touches on being a person of color in Scotland, which is like a land of whiteness, not to mention the fact that you're in the land of snow, which is even more whiteness. So it does that pretty lightly, and it's not the focus, which makes sense because I don't know if Zoe Allison is mixed ethnicity background, but I don't know. So that is in there, and it's also got a pretty big conflict talking about career versus parental expectations. Gosh, that's not relevant at all. So that's another thing that I appreciate in terms of like a realistic and easy to delve into and make relevant kind of plot hinge, which I thought was very well done. And all those different pieces made it a very well-rounded holiday romance. So we've got a really funny beginning as well. Like it's not a meet cute because they're exes, but you know, the inciting incident is really funny. The narrator's voice is really funny. The side characters help develop the sisters, the friends, the bosses, whatever, really well. So yeah, really well-rounded, and yeah, good holiday romance. So Zoe Allison, my first time reading her. And number 4 is, okay, so this is another overlay. This is another audiobook. So this one took me quite some time to get through. I'm not sure, maybe it was because of the travel, but this is Miss Eliza's English Kitchen, a novel of Victorian cookery and friendship. More on that in a second. The author is Annabel Abbs, who has written several other historical works and apparently has some famous literary figure for a parent, which I find interesting that that's in her bio. And it was read by Elle Potter and Bianca Amato. And they did a fantastic job. So once again, if you're in the market for audiobooks, this is a great choice for audiobooks because I loved listening to the different accents. And yeah, it takes place with a family who is from Ipswich, but, you know, 1830s, so elevated British pronunciation, and a young woman who is from the country around Tunbridge. And so they've got like clashing accents, and it's wonderful. So this one, historical fiction, so you know it's my jam, I'd give a 4.25 stars. It's really hooked me in with the historical detail from Ipswich to Tunbridge, but starting in London, because when we start, we're dropped right into Eliza, who is actually Eliza Acton, who wrote a super famous cookbook, which was published in 1845. One of these like Mrs. Beeton's, but she wanted to make it like really good as a cookbook, which I would appreciate, reading cookbooks for fun. And so it basically takes you through with some biographical, historicalness, but a lot of fiction. I don't know where she got her research for the fiction part. Her main points of her life, knowing that she published poetry in 1826. And then, well, I don't know how much because I haven't looked up and there's no author's note. I did wait for an author's note to hear about how much was fiction and how much was not, but it's not there. And I didn't look it up on Wikipedia. So I know that the poetry is there and probably that she never married is true. So we have basically theories about why this is this way. So yes, love the historical detail. That first scene in London where she's like sweating and nervous and talking to this publisher who couldn't care less, and like you really feel like you're there, and the smells and everything. Like Ben Pick's serious about how to write the different 5 senses in your fiction. Like this is definitely advice that she seems to have mastered. So yeah. I really liked the writer's musings about keeping the mind sharp by task switching. Oh, I can read the quote here. We've got, so this is me and my Libro.fm app, and I get my little bookmarks here. It is this constant switching between that keeps my mind sharp. And I just like, when she said that on the audiobook, I was like, oh, this is Eliza, not Anne. I felt like that might be the writer speaking, because in my life, a lot of the ways that I stay in a productive whirl is if I just go from thing to thing to thing back. And like my mind keeps going on multiple gears, but like I keep needing to switch and like write something down so that, okay, that one's off the front of the CD changer and on the back, and just like keep going through things like that. I don't know if anyone else works that way, but I liked seeing my own thought process mirrored in the narrators, if not the writers. So that was cool. I also appreciated the layered points of view. So we've got Miss Eliza, who is upper class British, but fallen on hard times, which is why she ends up needing to write this cookbook to make money for her household. And then we've got the other perspective, which is Anne Kirby, who is a bedraggled country girl who needs to work out of the house for the first time at 17, because her mother is taken off to the asylum and her father is struggling with work because he indulges at the tavern too much. So there were the 2 points of view, and we went between them in a well-coordinated way so that we could see in Eliza's view what she was perceiving in Anne's character or appearance, and know that she was misperceiving something, because with our benefit of 2 pairs of eyes, we know she's misclassifying the whole thing, right? When we're in Anne's point of view and we know all the stuff that she has going on that she doesn't share with her employer, or like the misperceptions that she has about the upper class world that she's never encountered, it's interesting it was just very well done to see different aspects, and it makes you not like Eliza as much because of the assumptions she makes, but hey, real life, right? So yes. Okay, and then here's my other thing. It says Victorian cookery and friendship on the front, and the facts are that her cookbook was first published in 1845, and she talks about having to work out the recipes and everything to have that published, taking 10 years working with her scullery maid come genius cook, right? And so that means 1835, when most of the action is happening, when Anne and Eliza meet, when they just start testing the recipes, when all these swoony food descriptions are being served up to us. That is not Victorian. Victoria ascended to the throne in 1837. So this is actually not Regency either, because the Regency ended in 1820 when King George IV became king rather than Prince Regent. So between 1820 and 1837, there's this gap of William IV and then whoever else before Victoria, or whatever. And it's hard. It's hard to tell readers what that's called. It's 17 years where you're like, it's not Regency, it's not Victorian. It's when my books are too. And I know it's hard to describe, but I did not put Victorian on my book because it's not. So I don't know what to say about that. I think I may have some issues to work through, but just getting it out there so that the facts are clear. Here's the other thing that I found interesting. So is this the little spoiler thing that I wanted to? Yeah. So if you are going to read this book and you are sufficiently interested, close your ears until I put this spoiler section down. One of the other things that bugged me, besides the dates and the way that it's marketed, is that there are 2 main hints about like the backstory twist, right? And one is that her mother says she has unnatural appetites and doesn't refer to something in her past and doesn't allow her to talk about it, like through 70% of the book, right? And also the other maid in the house, because they only have 2, makes these, like, drops these comments about Eliza being too good of friends, and like it's unnatural how she's so friendly with Anne and makes her feel bad about it. And I was like, okay, so these 2 things are really pointing towards there's going to be like same-sex relationship pining away in a time that wouldn't allow it kind of thing, right? Like LGBTQ themes. And no, it's just she had a baby with a man. And I was like, that feels like a bait and switch. So that's my tiny spoiler section about this. In case you weren't going to read it, but we're curious about like the other end of that. Okay, and now we're back. No more spoilers. I just wanted to say that. Let's catch up here. We had Felicia come in. Hello. And Shannon, St. Houston, is here. And Anita says, Victorian being used as a historical catch-all. I know. And like, I feel like from her background, she obviously knows it's not. And I even like tweeted a couple things saying, I'm loving this book. I love the descriptions. It's so great with all these Regency historical food. And I didn't know that like the little subtitle says Victorian. And she didn't mention it. So she was just like being diplomatic. But then afterwards I thought, oh, did I get it wrong? And then I did the timeline. I'm like, no, I didn't. So that's why I'm a little like, I'm being a nerd about it. Shannon says there's a new feature in the chat. When I click the 3 dots to the right, channel activity shows all that person's chats left on this channel, even from previous streams. Could be helpful to remember what someone has said in your chat from the past. Yes, for people who have the time. I like it. I like it. So that is book number 4. We're on book number 5 of 6, and that is going to be this one. So if you've been around, you know Grace Burrows is one of my go-to authors for historical romance / mystery. The Lady Violet series is historical romance mystery, and so I loved it. I think the first one I read was 5-star. Most of them have been 4-star. This one I'm giving 3.25 stars. This is book 7, Lady Violet Pays a Call. And I got this from a used bookstore in Beaverton, Jan's Paperbacks, who are lovely with the historical romance up the yin-yang. And let's see. Why is this? So for most of the book, there is no Lady Violet. It's dealing with Hugh Sevier. He is a sensitive man trying to one-sidedly repair his marriage, and he knows there are secrets, and we don't get to know them until the very end. So it was kind of unsatisfying and just sort of like felt meandering because the main character of the series wasn't in the book for most of the time. And we do love Saint-Sevier, but like in his head, it just wasn't what I was looking for. So it doesn't really get resolved except with a reveal from another. So his secrets in his marriage get solved at the end from someone else stepping in and revealing it to him, which to me doesn't really resolve their issues, but maybe that's the pace she wanted for the series arc. Also, the main conflict here, which is something happening in the town where there's like unrest and violence, is not resolved as satisfyingly as I would like. It's an interesting conflict, but like I would have liked the people who were justified in creating the situation to get a better reward than they did, which is like, oh, well, stop this and we won't prosecute you. So I don't know. Still, I got the humor and the tenderness from the main characters who are all lovely. Those were definitely still delivered. So Grace Burrows still has my heart. And I think I've got a couple more in this series that I got from Jan's. So good to have up my sleeve when I just want that sort of cuddly, cozy feeling in a romance. And then finally, let's see if it'll come up quickly. Yes, I read this one. This is A Christmas Truce by Emma Bennett, and I read it in the ebook format. And if you watched my latest roundup of diverse book reading, you know I struggle to read ebooks, so I'm happy that this one actually is available on ebook for me. I read this as a buddy read with my lovely friend Leslie, and she just put up her very extensive book review. Oh my gosh. So in her, I think 2 videos ago, or maybe the last video, Leslie went through what she likes about this romance, and basically it's one of the first that she really likes because she doesn't normally like romance, but this one she did, and she had many fine points about like what didn't annoy her, which is primo. I am more of a romance connoisseur, so I can just tell you, yes, I love this book. It's solid 4 stars, and I can tell you the tropes. I would say it's an escapist sort of, it's not fantasy romance, but like an escapist fantasy of romance. There's like a fairy tale billionaire. There you go. Like if that's what you want, you got it. But here's the cool thing, and I think where I might be like, lined up with Leslie, is the heroine sticks to her guns. So it's like the Jane Eyre, right? I think that Leslie talks about this too, but the point in Jane Eyre is that she sticks to her guns and she goes off and lives alone and like finds her own way and survives, right? She doesn't cave at the first puppy eyes from the hero. And the fact that she finds a way to live and prospers and he doesn't, or mends his ways eventually, is like the type of this fantasy. So yes, that's what I was here for. I loved it. We also touch on negotiating healthy boundaries and having competing values. That's the part of the sticks to the guns thing that was like needed here. And it also explodes with Christmas cheer, which is just lovely to read in the season, and includes a puppy. So obviously this is a perfect holiday read. It's a good emotional rescue. Again, if you're looking for a little escapist fantasy, an emotional rescue puppy dog book, Christmas Truce is definitely in your bailiwick. I would say go out and get it. So that is my holiday romance number 2 for the day. So yeah, and it's by my friend Emma Bennett here on AuthorTube. So very excited to be able to cheer her on with this latest book. So doing good on time. All right, still to go. Here's the rest that I was just going to share with you at the end here. My plan for the rest of the month, which is fast approaching. You remember this from back in September? Scottember, Memoirs of a Highland Lady. There's 2 volumes in here. I'm 90 pages from the end, and I'm taking heart from Jim's Books, Reading, and Stuff, who just finished Martin Chuzzlewit after like 3 months. This is taking me 4. I'm close. I might finish it before I leave for my family Christmas gathering. That might be cutting it close. It's more of a like read 10 pages at a time kind of read, because she's basically going on about, yeah, we visited with this guy this winter and they were delightful, and then we went into town and visited with these people, and one of their daughters was really stuck up and never turned out well, and then we went to this place and it was beautiful scenery, and like I can't take too much of that. So some of it is interesting historical detail, but there's a lot of personal stuff that I have no context for, so it's not sticking. So this might be an end of the year read, but 90 pages I can do in 2 weeks. I think I can do that. I'm not gonna take it with me because that's too big for the plane, but yeah, I got a week when I get back, so doable. I'm taking heart, so thank you, Jim. And then the last holiday romance I have is Love Holly by Emily Stone, which I picked up from the library. And this is a new release holiday romance, and it's also billed as like grief, sad, tender, but happy ending, So like I think I'll be ready for that when I come back from Hawaii. So that'll be my final holiday romance. And Our Migrant Souls, I am going to be listening to on the trip while traveling for the Patreon book club, and we will be meeting on December 30th. So plenty of time for that as well. So Shannon says, I always forget what people tell me during my writing streams. Oh, yeah, I suppose on your channel that would be pretty useful. I actually... Oh, you're right. Live chats don't get emailed. I have found it very helpful to have notifications enabled so that every time someone leaves a comment, it's sent to my email, my Gmail associated with the channel, and then I can search that person's channel name. So like if I remember someone told me this, or if I remember they said this comment with this word in it, I can often find the comment searching my email. But you're right, live chats aren't organized that way. don't know that much. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I write down what people say in the live chat if it's important, and a lot of it is like stuff of the moment that doesn't need to be remembered or written down. So cool to hear good things about Emma's book. Yes. And yeah, Leslie's review and on books, gers, and purrs is also great. So you can like click over to where she's talking about the book, and it's extensive, so you can tell if you really want to read it. Ellen is here. Hello, Ellen. Better late than never. We'll rewatch the top half later. Let's see. Hi, Laura. Other Laura. Do all American libraries stick a big old barcode over the front of the book? Trying to think. They've got to indicate somehow that it's theirs. You know, they do have a thing on the spine and nothing on the back. So I don't know. It might be just like the most efficient way to locate it or segregate it. As Jaden says, I've told myself to write stuff down, and I forget to do it. She's got the video pulled up. Here you go. Oh, and she's sharing it in the chat. Awesome. So this is Leslie's review of her December books, which has others as well as this one. So A Christmas Truce. Nice. So that is what I have for the rest of my reading month. The rest of the channel for this month, again, Sunday and Wednesday videos as per usual. The next two, I will be traveling, so I'm going to be pre-recording. So I may look very eerily similar to right now. But I will be talking about, well, I'll keep the mystery, keep the top on the box for another few days. When I get back, I'll be doing a live stream, for the Christmas Eve 1K Q&A that'll be wrapping up in a burrito, my Starograph stats, as well as all the Q&A for reaching 1,000 subscribers. So if you have a question, drop it on the community post. That's probably the easiest place for me to gather, or on Instagram with the post, or on Twitter with the post, or on Facebook with the post, because I put it everywhere just in case people had questions on different platforms. And that'll be Christmas Eve, and then sharpen your pencils for planning. So I'm going to have a sort of planning stream extravaganza Friday, January 5th in the evening, and probably go a couple hours with some friends to just like talk out how we plan, both quarterly and sort of yearly. And I feel like I'm going to have an expert on, because Esther Marie Andujar is like an expert in planning. So I'm very excited to be able to get her ideas about things, and all of us to sort of swap ideas, because I think that's such a fun environment and helpful when you're a little overwhelmed and need a tap on the brakes, perhaps. Yes. And Leslie saying, yeah, that's so sweet. Pick up a copy of the book. It's so good. Yes. Ebooks, audiobooks are very easy to gift for the holidays, and you know they will arrive on time because they're instantaneous. Just saying. So with that in mind, yay, planning. Yes. With that in mind, thank you so much for joining today. Happy holidays, and take care, and happy reading, everyone.